Hello, friends, benders and non-benders alike. Welcome to Braving the Elements, Nickelodeon's podcast about all things Avatarverse. I'm Janet Varney.
And I'm Dante Bosco. And Varney, do you feel it? Do you feel it?
Yeah. You're talking about us being back for season 4 of Braving the Elements.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I'm talking about, can you feel it? Feel that?
Are you cold? Do you need it to be warmer in here?
No, the shift in the universe, Varney.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I see what you're
a shift in time, a shift in all the energies.
I did not expect this level of drama, but I should have.
It's almost like...
Really? You're going to sniff the air?
Yeah.
You're going to sniff the air.
It's something in the air. It's a new avatar.
That's true, my friend. We are about to journey many years into the future. I have to say we both look great.
Yes.
Pause for close-up. Close-up. But we're about to begin that journey into the Legend of Korra.
I'm the Avatar. You gotta deal with it.
And I know, as I always say, a lot of things happen in every episode of The Last Airbender, but now we're about to get into a big old chunk of time where you don't know what happens. We jump in the future.
I would say that there are things that you can see play out a little bit in the graphic novels and stuff like that, but certainly there are, and great side adventures that you can have with some of the beloved characters. But in general, we are making a big leap into a whole new era.
Right.
And I think it's safe to say we should not be trusted to do that by ourselves.
No.
It's a terrible idea.
That's why we are not alone today. We are joined by our two dads, Mike DiMartino and Bryan Konietzko. Welcome, dads.
Hi, guys.
Good to be back.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome back, you guys. We're starting a new show and watching it again for the first time chronologically. I'm so excited to get into Korra and dig deep into this whole new.
I know you guys are kind of switching places now.
I know.
Don't remind me.
I'm excited.
terrified.
I'm excited. I got so much jabbing from Varney through the first show, so I can't really wait to get it back to a little bit on this second one.
I stretched these 3 last years out as far as I possibly could before the tables were turned. I'm very nervous about what that's going to mean. But and I think if you're cool with it, what we should do is have you make predictions about what's going to happen each episode, because I want to see where your head is going with where the series.
Now,
is.
have you seen the whole Legend of Korra, Dante?
No, I've seen it in my episode. No, I saw my episode, and I have also some of the parties, we had some screenings over the years to see some of the stuff. So actually,
that'd be interesting to see.
I know it ends.
Yeah.
But I don't know all the nuances of what goes on. So I'm gonna make some predictions. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
I'm looking forward to that.
But I have a lot of questions. First and foremost, exactly how much time has passed
since
in
the show, not in my life.
Not in your life.
I believe it was 70 years we settled on.
70 years since we've seen the last gang.
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to even think what 70 years looks like in our time. That's from the Roaring 20s to the 90s. That's that's a lot of time. Okay, that's a lot of time in real world. So in the first map, they created a new. They explain it really quick. Aang and Zuko create this whole cool thing. Now they have Republic Cities, so they've unified all the worlds, the nations. How does right?
Bryan will explain it all.
They explain it briefly, right?
I think our idea was that where a Fire Nation war kind of military colony had been, that they ended up sort of making this international city, you know. So it was a way to and it kind of heal the world, bring them together in a place that was, technically on Earth Kingdom land, but was this kind of international city. And I think in the comics we explored how in ancient times this was a sort of air nomad, kind of sacred place for air nomads. So it's this place that we've throughout the kind of life of the property where we kind of revisited and reimagined what it could have been in different times. So it was Mike and I on the first series. We ended up with this travel show.
You have no idea where you're going, do you?
Well, I know it's near water.
I guess we're getting close then.
Is really hard to do for animation production because you always have new designs, you always have new locations, new characters. So we thought we didn't want to repeat ourselves in every aspect. So we thought you know, we didn't want to have like another 12-year-old boy as the Avatar.
Right.
Like, let's have a teenage girl. We didn't want to have another reluctant hero as the Avatar. Let's have one who's really pugnacious and raring to go. So we thought, instead of like a travel show, let's center it in a big like metropolis. Because like you said, the Roaring 20s, the original series was, you know, roughly analogous to like the 1850s. So this kind of landed us in the 20s.
We're going to do big business with these movers, as I call them.
I love that time period. So we thought, we'll do this cool city, but a giant, complicated metropolis is also really hard to do for animation. So we just, once again, painted ourselves in a corner.
Well, I guess that kind of goes back to, and I know you guys have answered these questions, and there are some great interviews out there in the world, like how it kind of came back into your life to do The Legend of Korra, because you both had taken a break. It was extraordinarily hard work making that first show, and you both went off and did other things, and then the opportunity kind of chased you back down when you started talking about working on something again. And I know that it sounds like, and yes, I am going to talk about the art books. I don't want anyone to worry. One thing will stay very consistent through all the series we ever cover. If there's an art book, I'm going to be...
We're diving in.
That's where
leafing through
that's where the
it.
information is.
It's a great resource.
Yeah.
It's a great resource. But is the conversation, you know, you talked about building Republic City. You talked about having a different kind of avatar. Is there one thing that sort of spurred you forward first? Like, were you first thinking about a very different kind of avatar? Or were you first kind of talking about, like... I mean, genuinely, it could literally be you guys being like, you know, we had all those great hybrid animals we never used in the first series that we had sketched out. Like, was there a particular piece of that puzzle that Dante was just talking about that kind of spurned you forward at first?
I mean, the first thing was, Nickelodeon saying, hey, we will let you make this show, but it's only 12 episodes. So unlike Avatar, where we had this like big 3-season crazy idea and big arcs and everything, we're like, all right, this might be, you know, more like a mini series. Like, we'll go back, we'll make this, you know, one season of television, 12 episodes.
Really?
Make it as awesome as we can make it. So that's really where it started. And then the things that Bryan was just describing kind of came next of like, okay, well, we want it to feel totally different from the original series. And here are the ways we could accomplish that.
Yeah, I think actually the art book did play a part of sort of like recharging the battery, because we had left, we were kind of trying to get into doing features and stuff and live action, but we were working on the first art book for Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that was a really interesting kind of cathartic process of like going through all that old artwork. And on one hand, I was very proud of the work that everyone had done and what we had all accomplished together, and on the other hand, I was like, this stuff looks terrible.
This is
classic
Bryan.
We could make it so much.
The bitter work.
It was bitter work, but the results were worth it.
Bitter life.
Bitter life.
So but that energized me to be like, we learned so much on the first show. I think our skills were so much, you know, had developed a lot, and so I think I was kind of like preloaded with like that, man, we should, if we went back in, I would do this, I would do that. And then, that opportunity that Mike described landed on our laps. And it was just a series of kind of ideas popping in our heads, calling each other. I remember being on a road trip and just Korra, just the idea of like this pugnacious like teen girl just kind of popped in my head, called Mike, and we just, as we do, we just bounced back and forth, and we always had we always kind of start with like a scenario or like what's the world like. So I think Republic City, which I think Mike had those ideas, and it just sort of grew from there, just bounced back and forth.
I just realized that this conversation is probably going to contain a lot of foreshadow reports
it's
for
okay.
you, since you haven't watched.
He doesn't sleep because he's a recent father, so he's not going to remember any of this.
That's true. Why was
I'm watching it
it
in bed on the iPad. It's like going to my dreams. But I'm very fascinated because, of course, I'm of the world, and so seeing. First of all, I remember when it first came out and when you guys were doing it, and of course, people would hit me interviews about it all the time, and I was like, I'm so proud of my two dads, because it's like they could have easily have gone, you know, continue the story of this gang, or the Zuko's month, like all these things that the average writers would have done and would have been great. And I wanted to see too, but to jump into the future and to create this new world and not kind of rest on your laurels, but actually do something innovative. It was so exciting to me as an audience member, and and as part of the Avatar family, I was like, I'm so proud of him. This is so wild. Yeah. And so to see it now and to really experience it, and just the 20s too, very cool time. Also being in a city that's not dominated by one particular element. Yeah. It's very interesting to see. We live in America. We live in a diverse country. Seeing how all these different things play against each other.
Well, and the conflict. I mean, how early did the whole kind of concept of what the main, like the thrust of the conflict would be with Amon and the Equalists? Like how early did that come into play for you guys?
It was pretty early on. I mean, I kind of remember, like we had we had the idea of Korra, like, oh, she's gonna love bending. She's all about bending, and it was like the conversation was about, well, who would be the best villain to go against, someone who is against benders and bending, and
you make it sound so simple, like, well, she's this, she's that, but yet you're describing what people immediately called one of the coolest, most complicated, layered conflicts to see in the Avatarverse. It really had that. I think a lot of us felt like, oh yeah, like of course this would be a thing. Right. Like that totally makes sense. And there's a lot going on there. It's not just like a big bad who's like, he's mean.
I am the solution.
Yeah, we had we obviously had antagonists in the original series that we really, really loved, but in the whole spirit of just doing everything a bit differently, not just to be novel, but just also to keep us interested and to provide. I mean, we had done 61 episodes. It's like you start repeating yourself if you stay with all the same kind of pieces on the game board. So Nickelodeon saying, hey, we want to do this 12 episode like mini season. We embraced that. Like we weren't like, oh, that's a problem. We were just kind of, and they weren't.
You see an end in sight. That's
different. They weren't like that's it. They were like, maybe there will be more. So we just thought of it in a more modular way. Mm-hmm. And they kind of asked for that. Can you make it a bit more like self-contained season? So we just thought like, well, Korra can have an arc, but by having each, antagonist fit within 12 to 14 episodes, like then Korra can have way more direct interaction with them. Whereas like with Ozai, you are putting it off for
right. You can't have them
almost
have that confrontation.
like 60 episodes. Like Aang does
so
it.
Far, we don't even see him. We don't know. He's like a
and that
was like a whisperer.
That was fine for that series, but I didn't want to repeat that arc. Right. So it was kind of like making Korra. It's like you just never knew what next villain was gonna kick down the door, and that was kind of like making the show. It was like we didn't even know the problems that
it's
were
crazy to hear that now because
us.
The brilliance of the problem is the very thing that Aang used to fix the last problem, and we applauded it like, oh my, and he took the bending away from Ozai, and you're going, that's what we all applauded. It was so brilliant that he did that, and then for that to be the big scary thing of the future is like, you're telling me you guys just came up with that on the fly? I mean, it's so brilliant, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think with everything, like we like to not make we say this all the time, but not make everything black and white. This is good. This is evil. Right. There are always consequences to everything, unintended consequences. There are things that seem to be benevolent can be misused. Things, that's why we try to think in terms more of balance, and sort of things being in balance or out of balance, and so it sounds like this was all easy. I'm sure we were.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember how long we developed it, but I mean it was, but in a similar way to the original Avatar, where like a lot of the like big ideas came, in a relatively short amount of time. I think it was a similar thing. Like here's all the ideas. How do we, here's kind of the stuff we want to work with, and then actually like then writing the episodes and developing it further obviously took a much longer time.
Well, let's talk about bringing in Joaquin and Ryu, right?
Yeah.
Because they were
very
really
early.
key,
Yeah.
pretty early on, yeah. And
Very early, yeah.
obviously, we've had Joaquin on the show when he joined Avatar. I don't know if we're going to get Ryu, but we're big Ryu fans.
That would be fun.
So
Ryu is awesome.
how did they kind of enter into the picture? What was that conversation like, and then coming to them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we worked with Joaquin on Avatar, and he directed the big finale episodes, so we knew like we want him to be with us on this journey. He's amazing. So yeah, we called him. We're like, hey man,
so what you doing, Joaquin? What you doing?
Yeah.
The other thing was, again, in the spirit of doing things differently the second time around. I mean, Mike and I, though we had each other, and show running is just, it's so hard. It's a nightmare. You even having the two of us, we were still so overloaded,
sure.
and your days are just like completely packed. And we just thought, we love Joaquin's sensibility. He gets us. We love working with him, and Ryu, and they were kind of working as in a way that Mike and I were sort of working together at that time. They were sort of paired together, and I intentionally, we had the idea for Korra, and Mike and I were developing who she was, what her vibe would be. This kind of like inspired by like contemporary snowboarder, teenagers and stuff. But I deliberately didn't do any drawings of her because I wanted the first drawings to be done by Joaquin. Like I wanted him, whereas Avatar like started from a sketch of Aang that we didn't even know who he was. It was just a sketch, but then all of our ideas sort of sprung from that. With Korra, we had, the world and all this stuff. We were like, we want Joaquin to do it. And
Joaquin did the first sketch.
Yeah. So we saved that for him to do, and there's some behind the scenes soap opera about getting them over. Right. We'll save the.
Well, it's a big thing because Joaquin, when he told us earlier when he came on the show that when he auditioned for Avatar, he had to do sketches that on the spot. They told me like, draw this, and I'm like, okay, and he's like drawing things from Avatar, so going full circle, right?
Brad's like,
he probably did a storyboard test. That might be what he's talking about.
Yeah.
But we weren't like looking over his shoulder.
No. He was just like, I had to draw these things, and I was like, okay. And
like it's a dance audition. You guys are behind a big table, and he's just sitting
animation
in a chair
doesn't
by
work quite
himself.
like
Simon Cowell joined us.
Exactly.
Disney kind of they would make you do tests in house, but
so
no, we didn't.
But the awesome thing, I mean, we might have talked about Ryu in the past, but the awesome thing was like we had met him way back at the first episodes of Avatar because he was one of the animators in South Korea.
Yeah.
So I forget exactly what year, but he moved to the States to work at Warner Brothers, I think. So that's where he and Joaquin were working together. So by that time he was living in the States and everything. So it was awesome that we could bring him over on our on the pre-production side to help. But we'd had already worked with him in some respects for a long time.
Sure.
On the
He
original
knew the
show.
world.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Ryu, I mean, in Korea, where there's tons of incredible animators, I mean, he already had an amazing reputation there. And he did a lot of the key animation in the pilot of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Really?
So all this stuff of Katara yelling at Sokka.
For the last time, waterbending is not playing. Braiding my doll's hair, now that's playing.
I was 6.
Aang jumping out of the iceberg, like all of that stuff that when we got that footage, like the pencil test back, we were like, oh, we got really lucky. Like we hit the jackpot here.
Ryu's OG from day one. That's crazy.
So Ryu, he really helped introduce Avatar to the world. Like, and not all of the episodes lived up to that kind of animation quality, but because that was the
for you, Bryan, for you.
Look, Ryu, like Mike said,
he's on another level.
He's on another level. And when we got him, like he did the animation of the foaming mouth guy, which we've talked about a lot. And then we had him do designs when he was still living in Korea of Jet and Jet's gang.
Amazing.
But then he went on to other projects, so we lost him. Like, so we got all these really amazing. We were very lucky to like have him in all these amazing things in the first book of Avatar, but then we lost him. then he eventually, like Mike said, he came to the States. Within 2 weeks, his nickname at Warner Brothers was God.
Oh,
wow.
Well,
Just to tell you,
earned.
like, the level that he can draw. And when you see the stuff he's doing on Avatar right now, in a bit,
don't dare. That's so mean.
Oh my goodness.
But I just want people to know who he is. Joaquin's, both of these artists are, legends in their own careers for good reason. So anyways, yeah, it was really fun. Like, whereas when we developed Avatar, it was just Mike and myself, and I was doing drawings, and then we would write together, and Mike would do a lot of the writing. On this one, Mike and I would spend time in the writer's room together, but then we would go and we would do visual development with Joaquin and Ryu. They were drawing all day, so a lot of the ideas that we were coming up with were coming from stuff they were drawing. So it was
That's
it
cool.
was fun. It was
Talk
a different
about a flow. That's a
it was a different process.
Yeah.
It was cool.
The whole world of Republic City, you brought it up. I love to, like, just the idea of you guys having the conversations about who is being honored in this city, who would be remembered, how would we, lionize certain people, like, I feel like you don't hear it that much in the series, but I also could be totally just not remembering, because it didn't mean the same thing that it means to me now, having done this podcast. But like having it be Yue Bay, is just such a beautiful tribute, and it's a beautiful city. I think I read in the art book that you guys did a workshop together in the Canadian Rockies, and you ended up sort of putting a mountainscape that Republic City is up against that has that same kind of beautiful, clean, snowy mountain. It's beautiful.
Yeah, we sort of thought of the location of Republic City as being a bit like the Pacific Northwest. And so there'd be these conifers and these big, beautiful mountains. And yeah, Mike and I, in between, like, Nickelodeon, like, officially, like, hey, we want you to do this thing. And we kind of came up with the general idea. When we were on that trip, we were trying to come up with the name. And we knew we wanted, like, some sort of K name for our kind of naming convention for the water tribes. And we just kept kicking names back and forth. Mike hates naming characters. He absolutely, he loved to just name characters like character A, character B. He's like hates doing it. But we were on this trip and we stayed at this kind of like mountain eco lodge. We arrived with all our camera gear and our suitcases, and this like Swiss guy was this amazing like Bernese mountain dog or something ran out, and he was like, Korra. And we were just like, we looked at each other and we were like, I think that's it.
Did I know this?
That's it.
I'm sure you've talked about this before.
I don't know.
Did
So
I know
that was, and I think it was the Greek spelling probably,
Sure.
but we were just like, Korra. We just looked at each other.
That's handy.
There was really no conversation. We just both like,
That works.
Oh, no.
Yep, that
You're
was
so
it.
lucky that he wasn't like, Dog A, Dog A. Mike's like, yes, we can name it A.
There's so much energy and power when you name the characters, and it lives on. I mean, I've met people who've named their kids after Korra.
Yeah.
I met little
There's so
Zuko's.
many-
I met baby Zuko's. I even met one Azula. And I looked at the mother like, you met two?
There's
I'm like, why would you do that?
another Azula was
tales
just
of that,
born.
yeah.
Another Azula. Why are you
a week
guys?
or
Why
two
are you guys
ago.
out there naming babies Azula?
I am about to celebrate becoming an only child!
Big shoes to fill.
I haven't met any Hamas.
I've never felt more alive.
Azula gets another couple other chances. I'm gonna stand up for Hama.
It was nice to see Airbenders. Obviously, we only had one Airbender in the whole first series, so to see Airbenders come back.
we brought the Air Acolytes back.
The Acolytes,
yeah,
yes.
we
Well,
wanted.
but there's Tenzin.
But there's the
Yeah,
and
that's
the
what you're
kids.
talking about,
I
right?
mean,
Oh, and the kids,
Janora and
Yeah, I mean, that
Nikki
was to what you were talking about earlier about the names and stuff. You know, like one of the things we kept in mind was like, obviously this was a sequel to Avatar, and we wanted to like honor that and have some like Easter eggs, and you know, but it was like we didn't want it to feel like, oh, it's just Avatar 70 years later. Like it had to feel like its own thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, like meeting Katara as a elderly woman. I always liked that because it was like her passing the torch, you know, to Korra and the next generation.
Aang's time has passed. My brother and many of my friends are gone. It's time for you and your generation to take on the responsibility of keeping peace and balance in the world. And I think you're going to be a great Avatar.
And then, getting, we all know, sorry, Zutara fans, Aang and Katara ended up together.
Yes.
They had children, one of whom was an Airbender. And so that was a natural way of Aang during his time was alone, but now with his family and the generations, the Airbenders were slowly making a return. And then, coming up with those kid characters was super fun.
And Milo came from another trip that Mike and I were on. We went to a kids film fest in Amsterdam, and my old friend and college professor has a son named Milo. And he, while we were hanging out, he was just on Chris's shoulders, just slapping him in the face, and Chris just talking like as if it wasn't happening. He just,
man, I wonder where that kid. He's probably 20 now, right?
Something now.
Wow. That's nuts.
But
And
apparently
he reminds me of my little son. I'm watching. I'm look at my little son. He's hilarious.
My friend and his spouse, they showed the show to Milo when he was a little older, and they said that character is inspired by you. And Ryu made Milo fart, and we didn't usually do fart humor, but that was Milo's big thing. And the real Milo goes, "How did they know?"
Taste my theory!
That's slightly less amazing than Toph being a real blind woman in the past.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as exciting, but it turned out to be a very spiritual connection between the two Milos. It's just in fart form. That's all, just in fart form. Let's talk a little bit about some of those characters a little bit more, because for me, Korra, for as much as people are frustrated by her, and I think the first season, some people give up, some people fall in love with her. I know, I'm very,
She's very.
I'm in it now because I've been watching the first season, and I'm like, ooh,
she's a human.
She's very human, and she comes from a very specific place where if you're constantly being told that this is who you are and what you do and why you're so great at it and and you're being cloistered away, then something's going to happen when you pop out into the real world and are faced with different kinds of challenges and things that have different consequences than when you're training for something. That being said, the thing that I was always surprised by when people would be I'm not a fan or whatever, was that I was I feel like she has, intentional or not, she's the least like Aang, yes, but in my mind, all the influence, I know that it doesn't make sense because it's not genetic, but the character influence of these people around Aang is so much a part for me of who Korra is. You see Toph in Korra, and you see a lot of Zuko in Korra, and you see Sokka, and you see Katara. There's all these different things about Korra that feel like they're kind of honoring the friendships and the love that Aang had for these complicated characters from the first series. Yeah. But maybe, it's a lot to take on because you're also processing we're not seeing those characters. Oh, Katara is an older woman now.
Right.
It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. And that's okay. It's okay for it to be.
It's funny, a lot of the criticisms of Korra, it's not even that I get defensive, it just rolls off my back because honestly, I relate to Korra way more than I relate to Aang. Aang is much more Mike, and I am much more the pugnacious, fiery personality.
Who do you think you are?
Why don't you come and find out? So Mike hates 100%. Korra. You heard it here on Braving the
Mike, being Aang, loves everybody.
That's right.
It's everybody else who, I guess they just wanted this perfect, I don't know. I'm where do you get a character arc out of there? Where do you get growth? And Korra has a huge arc. Mm-hmm. So,
well, people who get it really get it, and people are finding it now for the first time without having had a relationship to the first series in the same way that people who grew up with it did. And I understand. I've always said it on this show. I love y'all. The door's open. Just don't be weird on the internet. That's all. It's so simple. Just so simple.
Watching the show for the first time, coming straight from watching and deep diving the original show and then coming into this. First reaction is the screen's bigger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yeah, we got to do widescreen. That was exciting.
First thing I'm
it was HD. It was HD.
I watched the whole series of a square screen, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm in the future, and then I start feeling these aren't kids.
They're a little.
Everyone's older. It's more mature. Because again, I love the original gang, but they're young, and there is that great youthfulness with them. When you're looking at these characters now, it just feels a more mature, which is more interesting. There's more things going on, and then the style. How did you guys choose the style of what's going? Not that there was a full-on shift, but there was something feels, I don't know, the whole style of Republic City and the it's cool.
It's
the fashion,
so rich and textured, and the mechanics.
I can't put my finger on it. What is what was behind all that?
I mean, even just aging them up was a choice. Like,
yeah, we wanted to differentiate it from the younger thing. So we were thinking of it as, kind of like a YA series versus a middle grade series or something. So, thematically it's a little darker, a little more intense sometimes. And yeah, it's more like teenager angst than kid angst, which
is different.
I don't know any, parent or grown up who's like, man, teenagers make great choices all the time. So
of course,
right.
Your brain's still developing. You're still, and especially for Korra, who's, a little impatient and just wants to get out there and do her thing. Like, yeah, you inevitably make some maybe not so wise choices, but that's kind of what the whole arc of the series is about. Is her coming into that wisdom and spiritual growth.
Yeah, and even though within the show it's 70 years later, in real life it was 4 or 5 years later. So we were kind of aging up with the audience that had maybe grown up with the show. And again, it gave us another opportunity to have some different ingredients, some different kind of it's like if you're going back into do another album or something, it's like bringing in some different instruments. It just automatically gives you some different textures and kind of vibes. And then for the style, I mean, that was going back to how making the Avatar art book really influenced making Korra. There were things that I was proud of in the original art direction, but there was all this stuff I was just like, we didn't really have a background painting style. There was a lot of over reliance on kind of like overlaying photo textures over stuff, and when that got we might have like a decent or nice looking key, but when that got translated to like 300 backgrounds in an episode, not like a stylistic voice didn't carry over. So that was like one of the number one things. I was like, we need a background painting style. So we and I, even though I did oil painting in college, like I was not adept at doing digital oil painting at that time. I'm a little better now, but so the goal was just, let's just find someone who has an awesome style and then just build the show style around their art. And we found Fred Stewart. It was just this young, quiet, amazingly talented artist who was pretty much just fresh out of school.
Wow.
And we're just like, Fred, I mean, we kind of tweaked the style to meet the needs of the show, but it was more or less just building this aesthetic around his. And then like with Joaquin,
you could feel it. It's like one of those immersive things that you can't really put your finger on, but I'm watching, I'm like, I definitely feel more immersed in this world.
I got to tell a story about the widescreen and the HD thing.
Hit it.
So we weren't supposed to do that. We had wanted to do that. We tried to do it on the series finale on Avatar. We wanted to like, come on, we were like, we can't keep doing this standard def stuff. And Nickelodeon, just with their whole like international like kind of distribution to all these other partners, they were like, no, it's gotta. But when we came back to do Korra, Mark Taylor, Legend, just was like, just do it. And he was being told not to do it.
Wow.
And he just let us do it. And then
by the time the show came out, everyone was like, are you doing that show in HD? Because we, like everything was HD by that point.
Right. They had this panicked mandate. Guys, we have to up-res everything. And we were like, we're already doing it.
That's
so this
so
thing
great.
that we were being told explicitly not to do. So that was some brilliant studio management by Mark. So thanks, Mark.
Very cool. No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I was going to say too is that when you talk about that immersion, I mean, there are shots where you feel like you're inside of something and there's more 3D happening, right? I mean, there's more just, do you have different technology,
what's
computer
going on?
stuff, where you're really seeing something from all these different...
Interestingly enough, I just had lunch yesterday with Michael Arias.
Okay. Cool.
So Michael Arias he's from LA, but he's lived in Japan for, I don't know, 30 years now or something. And he's had this really interesting career starting in visual effects, but he's like one of the first or only Americans to ever direct a Japanese animated feature.
Wow.
He directed Tekken Concrete, which is really legendary.
Really?
And that film, to this day, you watch it, it's just mind-blowing. And it's like these like color pencil kind of backgrounds, but it's sort of 3D, and it's like handmade, but you're moving through it with these 2D characters. There have been a lot of really great things that play with that kind of technique, but Michael, being a kind of visual effects person, but also this really amazing artist, like he and his crew just really pushed it, and it's still like one of the best examples of that. So we had met him out here at like a dinner, and then we went to him in Japan to like help us like figure out how to do that for TV. So the whole opening of the first episode where you're like flying in, that was all like him giving us advice about how to use After Effects and stuff. So yeah, we one of the big changes other than the background style was to have an in-house compositor. So we had Matt Gabois, and that just, we called him the wizard. I mean, just having one compositor just like leveled up the show. And so we would try to have shots in every episode that had a little, that parallax, you know, kind of 2.5D.
Which you see, I mean, I think too with the pro bending, that like that plays so nicely in this idea of pro bending. And again, you know, lots of foreshadow reports here, but just the whole idea that not only is bending an issue with, you know, people who are breaking the law or people who are taking advantage of other people, but also is like, well, why wouldn't we also have this sport? I mean, that is one of the things that I think really people got sucked in so quickly by the idea of pro bending. I remember getting that feedback so early on from fans of the original series who were just like they needed to talk about it. You know, they were just like, the pro bending, what? Of course, yes. Like the thing we didn't know we needed. You know, people really respond to that. So what was that process like? If you can talk a little bit about that.
I mean, that was all from Bryan's MMA days. He's like, we need more sports in this show. And I was like, what are we going to do with sports? I don't know what to do with sports. But yeah, once we had the like benders versus non-benders conflict, it thematically started to make more sense to me. We're like, oh yeah, if you have the sport where like everyone's like cheering benders and they're kind of like celebrities. And then, one of our, you know, we meet Mako and Bolin and they're in this world, and Korra wants to be in this world because that totally makes sense for her character, that she would see this sport and be like, I want to do that. That sounds awesome.
This place is even more amazing than I imagined.
Name's Bolin, by the way.
Korra.
But Bryan was the mastermind of the like how the rules worked and you know how the gameplay happens and all that stuff.
But the original, the impetus for the idea came from something we developed together. We were in between Avatar and Korra. We were like trying, one of our many forays into like trying to get a big MMOG like Avatar video game off the ground, and it was set in like an ancient time, but like a time of peace. And we thought, it'd be, you know, it's the kind of martial arts thing. Like martial arts isn't always about like war. It's like competition or focus, you know, self-discipline and just like kind of elevating the art. And testing your art against someone, and that can be in a respectful, sporting manner. So we thought, in that, we were like, it'd be really neat if there was just in this time of peace, like benders of all nations got together and just like fought each other for the art of it. And so we had that idea, and we were like, man, that's like a really fun thing to not have to like show firebending always be like, I'm trying to invade your country.
Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
So it's more of the, you know, the martial arts vibe. And when we I think it was the next year we were working on Korra, we were like, hey, that idea, what if we did a modern version of it? We didn't have airbenders, but
not yet.
And we did it as a team sport, and then I ran with it, but it was an idea Mike and I had together.
It's great. It makes so much sense. I mean, in the real world, our professional athletes are basically superheroes.
Yeah, right.
The football players and the basketball players, and then you're like, and the airbenders are superheroes. So why wouldn't they be the athletes of that world?
Yeah, and you know, if you look at the history of like wrestling now, like, you know, it's a big deal now and it's a big industry, but like it was huge at the turn of the century and in the 20s and stuff, like massive people listening to stuff on the radio. So I wanted to capture that old school like wrestling or boxing vibe. And so, you know, like Joaquin and his early designs of the pro bending was like the kind of leatherheads, you know, like the early football and stuff. So yeah, it's just like all part of that. And again, it's a nice foil if everyone, including non-benders, are sort of like hero worshiping these bending athletes, to have someone come in and be like, and to use that as like, sorry, the spoiler, but to use the pro bending thing as like to showcase, you know, the resistance against that.
And it gives me feels of Blind Bandit.
Your champion, the Blind Bandit!
Gives me like connections and feels of that.
And I just want to add something, and this is going to be, and it will be the only time I say this entire season, maybe. But for those of us who look at everything through a Tron lens.
Oh yeah.
That
it's Tron.
That arena.
We're starting with Tron. We're starting with Tron already.
I'm just getting it out of the way. I'm getting it out of the way. The disc, and also like the scoop of light. The scoop of I forget what it's called.
It's the Miami Vice.
When they're going back
Miami
and forth.
Vice. This is the thing.
When they go back and forth with the scoops, you know what I'm talking about? And
Highlight.
I love the blue and the orange. It feels like
Can I ask a question on this program? Can I take?
I wish you would.
Yes, please.
Well, no, I wanted to ask Janet, since you are Korra.
My name is Korra. I'm the Avatar.
Which we haven't talked about enough.
I know.
I guess we didn't talk about
I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but when you came into audition, did you know what you were auditioning for? Did you know about Avatar, and were you just like, what am I doing here?
Well,
what
the
is,
main
what
thing
is this place?
I was thinking about that the other day, because I did think like, oh no, there are certain sort of stories that become part of your like arrows in your quiver when you're asked about stuff. And so when people talk about the casting process, like I'm able to, I think, and I always say like memory is malleable, I could be wrong, but my memory was that there was a series of auditions and that there was a lot of time between them.
Right.
And I know that had to be true because I kept thinking like, well, that went away, as it should have, because I don't deserve this. But I can't remember, like I feel like is it possible that I wasn't supposed to know that it was related to Avatar at the beginning?
That is possible.
Like it was kept a secret? Because
it might have been at the beginning.
I have a sense of who Korra was, but it took a while for me to get the information that it was going to be an extension of the original series, which I had a deep and abiding love and respect for. So I'm glad that I didn't carry that all the way through the process. But I feel like maybe by the test, like the sort of chemistry test, I think I knew by then, and then I was like, can't wait to screw this up so I can just go back to my life and feel sorry for myself.
Untitled Nickelodeon series. Untitled.
Here we are.
Yeah.
That's a good question, because I was just doing some casting and we had to code everything and hide everything, and I was like, did we do this on Korra?
Not to the extent we have to now, because it just wasn't what it is now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure in the beginning we probably weren't advertising the fact. You know, they were probably keeping some details under wraps.
Yeah.
But I gave it away at the audition. I was like, this isn't helping me for you to not know, so I'm just going to tell you. And
then so Bryan.
Other people just knew. Other people just knew because of who was in the room. But I'm like, why are we hiding this? This isn't helping me. I would like to know if you know this, because
that's fair. That's very fair. We haven't really talked about the steampunk of it all, which is another like buzzword that comes in a lot when people talk about what they love about the design of the series and about the gadgetry and about Asami's glove or you know the chi blockers or even the Sotomobiles and
the technology. All we had was Sokka making stuff up and the mechanist back back in our show.
Sure.
So now we're in a whole new realm of technology. Industrial Revolution, kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, Avatar had some
the tank and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had the tanks.
Fire Nation, we're a good military force.
And the drill is like,
I still think there's a missed opportunity of a toy for the drill.
Agreed. That could be our G.I. Joe aircraft carrier.
100%.
Because we had that, we had already established a kind of like steam, technology in the world, but we didn't want to go too advanced with stuff. Like, I don't know, Mike and I always feel like with the bending or anything, it's just the more you limit things, actually the more interesting it is. Right. If things are just too powerful or readily available, it kind of makes stories hard.
It does. I can think of several superhero franchises where you're like, but if that person can control time, why wouldn't they just...
Yeah, oh, don't get me started. Time travel. So, yeah, we didn't want to go like full steampunk. So the joke on the production was steampunk light.
Sure. Steampunk light.
Sure.
Yeah, it was just like a little bit. But I mean, I loved all the, the designers at Mir, the prop designers, just all the different vehicles and stuff. Like, that was a version of it that I think worked well for the Avatar world and didn't like it. We didn't want to like go too far where it was just like monocles and top hats and like so yeah, it was a smattering, a little sprinkling.
That's true of, just the being able to create that kind of melting pot of all of these different influences, and certainly you see that again with Republic City. You see that there's a sort of feeling of an Eiffel Tower, but it also feels like there are buildings that feel very Indian, palace-like in this very special, beautiful way. So you feel like it kind of works for the whole idea of Republic City too. It's like, well, it wouldn't just be this one thing. It would purposefully be this mix of all these different things. Whether or not that's categorized as steampunk light,
right?
Fine, I'm comfortable with that term.
I think you said it exactly, because I think I felt it when I'm watching it, but it's not like the main. Sometimes so many steampunk things is the stempunk is.
That's the character.
Strong,
that's the main.
It's a strong flavor.
It's a strong flavor, but it's not that. But there's a feel of a taste of it.
Yeah. So we just talked about the technology and Asami's glove and her style, and she's incredible, and I'm so excited for you to see just her role in the show.
Can't wait.
How beloved she is. But in the art book, it said that she originally was going to be perhaps like a mole, or she was going to she was going to turn out to be a bad gal. So to speak, an adversary, instead of staying on the team.
Opposite Zuko, like the reverse story of Zuko.
So, but can you tell us where, what happened and...
I do remember that was the initial idea. And somewhere in the writing, we were just like, we don't want to make her a bad person.
Yeah.
She's great.
That's great.
She's telling you that she's good.
Yeah, I don't know how spoilery we're going to be, but yeah, we still use that idea.
Mm-hmm. Kept it close to home.
Yeah.
Foreshadow report.
It didn't totally go away, but yeah, I think she works much better as a member of the team.
But you can see it when you first meet her and she takes her helmet off.
I'm so sorry. I didn't see you.
How could you not see me? I mean, I was wow.
You don't know what's up with this girl.
Oh, she could be trouble. Like she could be a femme fatale.
Sure,
you know?
Sure.
Oh yeah, great opening.
Yeah,
shot.
Like Mike said, that was the original idea, but it wasn't even that far in. We were just like, we like her.
Yeah.
So
she's great.
But honestly, the version that we ended up with, I think, gave us a more interesting conflict.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously Asami plays a huge role moving forward. So yeah, I mean, it's always a fluid process. Some things ahead of time. Other things I've said often with like the original series, the characters tell you.
Yeah.
They kind of tell you like
right.
who they are and what they would do and what they would say, and it's sort of a process of getting to know them. Some characters are much quicker, or they're based on someone that so you're just like, oh, they wouldn't do that.
Right.
Other characters we sort of created her more. Wasn't like, I have an idea for a really cool like badass like mechanic, like race car motorcycle person. It was like, oh, we have this idea for this, like what we need for conflict. Out of that grew a character that we ended up quite liking, and then we just kind of changed our intentions for her.
That's great.
I like the inspirations also from the golden era of Hollywood with like Rita Hayworth and Marlene Dietrich, which I love that era. Have you incorporated some of these things into that era of Avatar? Is brilliant. The characters, because Asami is it Rita Hayworth?
I think that in the art book it's that she's got a little tinge of Rita Hayworth to her, whereas Lin Beifong has a little tinge of Marlene Dietrich.
Yeah,
that's great.
And just a lot of the hair.
The hair for sure. The hair for sure.
I don't know. My grandma was from a town of 18, but looked like she was on a movie set every day.
Amazing.
And
amazing.
there's a photo of her. She had just given birth to my mother the day before, and she looks like she's on a movie set, and her hair is all curled. So I kind of wanted Asami, even if she takes the helmet off, somehow her hair is still perfectly and that Korra is just not that person, you know.
Nope.
That both are okay, you know. So.
Absolutely.
Also, we talked about it a little earlier, but I have to bring it back up. Being Fire Nation, I feel a little guilty of all the Airbender things happened in the first show. So it's
proud
nice
of you, buddy. Proud of you.
You guys brought the acolytes. How does this all work? I just want to know that we're back.
The acolytes, how they work? Well, yeah. So we have Airbenders who are directly descendant from Aang. But in the intervening years, people became interested in air culture, I guess you'd say, and that so that we have Air Temple Island, which is the little island right in the bay there, which became Aang and Katara's home, and then Tenzin and his family live there. But yeah, you see a lot of people who kind of look like Airbenders. They're dressed in the robes and stuff. But the idea is that they are kind of followers of the culture and the teachings and Tenzin's teachings, but they don't have airbending abilities.
Right. They're the non-benders from the air nomad.
But they are non-benders they could be from any culture. Yeah.
There are no air nomad survivors. So, and it's just kind of a testament to the beauty of air nomad culture and any culture, that there were these tenets of it that were worth preserving, and that people, especially people coming out of 100-year war, would say they would, look to this thing that the world had lost, but hey, the world needs that mentality. It needs that as a balancing force. People who try to be altruistic and try to be kind of benevolent towards all creatures. So it's obviously not going to be the whole world, but it was sort of this natural pendulum swing back to fill in the void of something the world had lost.
I mean, that is beautiful. That is so beautiful. And I love the idea of wanting to build that community, which feels like such a gift to Aang and Tenzin, and to feel we're not alone.
Yeah.
Whether everyone has the exact same skill set as us. And
I was concerned.
Yeah.
About the future of the air nomads.
I appreciate that.
So
again, I am proud of you.
I'm happy to know that they're okay. They're doing okay.
Before we let you go, do you have, for us to just keep in the backs of our minds as we go through book one, do each of you have an episode or two that you're particularly proud of, or that just really stands out to you for some reason?
I mean, book one, it has a lot of great moments. So we co-wrote all of book one, which is, we had co-written episodes on Avatar and stuff, but this was us just doing the whole thing. So it's hard to pick from ones that I wrote on, but
well, it's serialized, so there's a real flow. It's not it's there's this one.
But I the finales, and then I guess it's episode 11, the one where you learn about Amon's backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I love a good backstory reveal. So
it's a really good one.
That one sticks out.
For me, the one I would spend as much time as I could in the writer's room on Avatar, but this was the first time I got to just be in the writer's room, because it was on the first season, so we were still just starting up. And then ultimately, once we got into book two, I couldn't do both.
Sure.
So Tim and Josh came in, which was great. So I was still very involved with them, but they were doing it. But yeah, it was great. It was the one time the planets aligned, and Mike and I were able to just write together a whole book. And for me, I love all of book one, but A Voice in the Night, episode 4, I believe, and it, not only am I really happy with how it came out, and just some stuff that we did, some kind of tonal things that we did that we had never really done before. Again, it being a bit more of a YA show, just more of a psychological threat. But the bending fight and the fire bending in the dark.
I was so
just like how scary that would be, but as you bend, you're seeing little flashes of these people around you. But that was also the hardest episode to write. And I cite it often because I like when people say, "Oh, we were banging our heads against the wall." I literally, the couch in Mike's office was up against a corkboard, and I at one point was just banging my head against the wall because we were. This happens so many times. You have a premise, and you're like, "Yeah, this is great. This happens. This happens. This story is perfect." And then you go to the outline stage. You're trying to beat out the cards, and you're like, "This makes no sense," and we were stuck. Really stuck for 2 days or something. But the reason I cite it a lot of times in the creative process for other people and myself is we had too many ideas. And when we removed, I don't even remember what it was, but we removed some idea, and it just all fell into place. It locked in. So I love that one. And then just a moment, and I don't remember what episode it was, maybe 10 or something, but Lin Beifong's sacrifice.
Whatever happens to me, don't turn back.
That's what I was gonna say.
I'm a sucker.
That's my favorite.
I don't know.
That's my I think that's my favorite isolated moment in all of book one.
Like I am a sucker for a self-sacrifice. Just character going. I know what's gonna happen, and I'm going to do it because it's the right thing.
Oh, it's so good.
So really so proud of that one. Yeah.
I don't want anyone to worry. Yes, as I do every time I watch Korra or Avatar, I cry through most of the episode.
We're just
There's
starting.
just a lot of this.
We're just starting this.
It's just a lot of this. It's a lot of this.
I have to.
I can't. How am I? It's so.
I have to end with a little story. When we got footage back from 101, and it looked as amazing as it does. I brought you in after we did a record. I was like, "Hey, do you want to see something?" And I, ushered Janet in the office and showed her. And I was sitting in my chair, and she was behind me. And when I turned around, it's just a waterfall.
As if I had been crying for 5 minutes instead of 30 seconds.
But that, I was so excited and proud and eager to show her. And
you didn't have to worry that I would under respond to how special it was.
But that always stood out to me. That moment was great. So,
it happens at least once an episode, as it did with the first series. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to get into this whole show and dig deep and go through all the ups and downs and meet everybody that you guys worked with doing the show. So I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's get into it. Now we've laid a great foundation. We're gonna have some great guest stars. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again if we can somehow muscle you back in. We know how busy you are working on.
Anybody teasing?
Now I'm in the mood. I just want to say what we're doing. I don't even care.
Brian's the leaker. He's the leaker.
I'm the leaker. No, at least the thing I'm working on. I'm like, who cares? I'm just gonna say what we're doing. No, we're doing a lot of great stuff. But
you are.
Yeah, one day. Some of it will come out.
All of this, and we'll be talking about it on this podcast.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
And until then, we got a lot of Korra to go through and enjoy. So thank you, our two dads, so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys.
Mike DiMartino.
Great to see you.
See you next week, everybody.
See you next week, guys. Dive deeper into the world of Avatar with more of our award-winning podcasts.
Avatar, Braving the Elements is available right here on the Avatar Legends YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
And catch more Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra on Paramount+.
That's the stuff! You are my hero!